Welcome to week 4. This week we are transitioning from torts and crimes into contract law. I wanted to talk first about last week's assignment so that I can give you guys a little bit of feedback on how the grading went this week. The number one thing I am still seeing in going into week 4 after 3 weeks is you have to cite to the course material. If you are not using in-text citations to show where in the textbook or the other course material you got the information, that is either plagiarism or a high likelihood of use of AI. So I want you all to be sure that you're going into the textbook, into the PowerPoints, into the lectures, into the videos to get the information that you are using in your papers each week. Last week when we were talking about comparing a tort and a crime, so many of you all did a fantastic job on that. I did make some comments on where you could go deeper, how you could show a little bit more analysis on that distinction. For many people, it was the difference in the burden of proof, the difference between a criminal law where you need to go in and show it beyond a reasonable doubt, and in a tort where it's a preponderance of evidence. You're held to a higher standard with a criminal action than it is for a tort. It's harder to prove a crime than it is a tort because it's a different kind of case. It's a different set of rules, a different standard. Another thing was I gave several people did a great job on listing the types of torts or listing the defenses. It's great when you list them. It is excellent when you go in and show that you not only can list them, but you understand what they are and give an example of them. And finally, on the Wellesby case, you do not cite to the website where you did your research. You don't go to that website. You put in the case name. Let me show you an example very quickly. This is the most common citation I got this week for the case. You cited to this web page. Yes, this is where you got your information. This is where you did your research to get to the case. However, when you're doing a legal case citation, you're going to use this citation information. You're not going to cite to this website. This is a solid research for legal cases website. This is where you should be going to get your cases for an undergraduate class. This is perfect. However, you need to go one step further and make sure you're listing the name of the case and the citation. If you go to Purdue OWL, they've got a whole legal reference section in their writing library. This gives you guides on how to do things. I pulled up the one here for APA. It tells you to go to the case name, put the citation, the jurisdiction, the date of the decision, and you can put the URL in APA. It's not required, but that is something that you can do, depending on which version of APA you're being asked to use in an academic setting. In a legal setting, we aren't using APA. We use the Blue Book. It's a little bit different than when you're doing academic writing, but this is the format you should be following. And then when you're doing your parenthetical citations, you put the case name. So when you're citing to the U.S. Supreme Court, you're going to put the case name, the volume, page number, and year, and I'll show you really quickly. Right here is the volume, and there would be a page number on some of them. If it does not have that page number, you can use a dash. However, this case has been out there long enough that I know it begins on, I believe, 577. So when you're looking at it on Justica and on the normal sources, if it has that dash, you are welcome to use that. Or you can go a step further once you know how to research a little bit further and know that it's 577. And you can put the URL at the end of that. This will go at the end of your paper with your list of like the textbook citation after you put references and you're going down and listing them. But you also need that in-text citation of the case name and the year that it was done. This is for APA. Just want to re-emphasize that when you're doing academic writing, this is what you use. This is not necessarily how you will be citing it when you're in a legal practice. You'll want to make sure that you're going to the Blue Book style. This is what we use in the legal world. Slightly different, but not a whole lot different. And it's got examples here of how the Blue Book cites cases, and more importantly for a lot of you guys, how you're going to cite the Constitution of the U.S. federal government and state governments, and then different statutes, legislative material, administrative material, and books and reports. It goes all the way down. So the Blue Book, when you get out of an academic setting like you're in right now where you're going through school and you're working in a law firm or you're in law school, you're going to use the Blue Book. Right now, absolutely perfectly okay to use MLA, APA, or Travian, whatever you are used to using. So I just wanted to show you that distinction and make sure that you're not going to this website and just putting that in as your citation, or you're not putting OIEZ. You're going down here and putting District of Columbia versus Westby. Okay, so that was the main things on last week's paper. If you are not citing to the course material, you will not get a passing grade. It does not matter how great your content is, you must be citing to the course material to get a passing grade. All right, this week on contract law. This is an area of law that I work in quite a bit. It is very formulaic. The way we draft our contracts follows a similar formula. The way we evaluate them in the court system is a very cut and dry area of the law. You have parties that are entering into an agreement. The agreement must be based on a legal activity. It must be something that is legal to be required. They have a meeting of the minds where they come together and both parties understand what they're doing. The compensation and the consideration is understandable. You know what actions must be done. You know what the compensation will be. Those are called considerations. That's when you're doing something in order to get paid or in order to get something else. You know what is expected of you. The parties that are entering into a contract, they have to be able to have capacity, both mental capacity and legal capacity. They have to be old enough to enter into a contract. They can't have been judged by the court system already to be incapable of doing that. There are some people who are over 18 who should be able, if you just look at the age limit, to have capacity, but for other reasons, the court has determined that they are not capable of entering into a contract. And when you're entering into a contract, both parties need to be aware of the other party's ability to do it, and you have to have justification for thinking the other party did have capacity. First year of law school, every law school student I've ever talked to, one of the very first cases that they do is the Harry Hand case. This is Hawkins versus McGee. It is a much older case. It is going back to the late 1800s when a surgeon was doing a groundbreaking type of surgery, and it had an outcome that was unexpected. We've all studied it. We go into it in great detail, and it's just one of those foundational cases that really helps you understand contract law, looking at how it is not even evolved, how it has moved through the decades and how the elements are still present and very, very similar in 2024 that they were in 1891. So if you watch this video, it gives a layman's overview of the case. Then I have the appeals case here where you guys can read it directly in the link. And there's a case brief that I've included at the top. Case briefs, when they are done independently, are a phenomenal tool for students to learn how to analyze cases. You can find case briefs on every case online. You can use AI to generate them. But when you do that, you are losing the ability to critically think and to work through the facts, to determine what facts are relevant, to determine what the legal precedent really was, what law was applied to the facts at hand. So it's really important to use some of these now when you're in your undergrad years, when you're still working on this legal studies degree and the paralegal degree. Use this to learn how to do your own case briefs in the future. So I'm giving you this one to see how it's laid out, what the issues and holdings were, and how it was decided. So this is this is not something you would cite to, in other words. This is something I'm giving you guys to show you how you can use other sources to learn how to do this on your own, to develop these skills on your own, because it is very important that you can do that. And this is a fun case to do it with. This will give you great understanding of an issue, especially for those of you that want to go into law school. So when you're in contracts and this case comes up, you'll have an understanding of what's going on and you can discuss it intelligently from the get-go. Okay, the other things in here are just lectures that I have pulled out for you all to look at, to review. And again, I've got a how to write a law school outline link. This helps you analyze the cases. It helps you analyze legal questions. whether you're going to law school or getting ready to start working in a firm as a paralegal. This is fantastic and will help you tremendously to be able to do these things on your own. With the reality that sometimes you won't have time to do it on your own. There are so many times when I am working, I have a case before me that has never been briefed, that is not out in the legal world. It's an unpublished Supreme Court case opinion. It's an unpublished Court of Appeals opinion. Something that we decided in my court, I work for the circuit court, that has been appealed. That comes back to us, and whether the appeal was granted or denied, the analysis in there is something that I have to be able to understand on my own as a matter of first impression. It's not something that I can find out there. And that happens a whole lot when you're in legal practice. So here's the case. Read through this, look at it for yourself, see what you think the legal questions are, what the pertinent facts were, and then go look at that case brief that I gave you and see how close your analysis was to what they have there. You have a PowerPoint. And I've hidden this from you guys. You don't need this in this class. We're not going to go into Hammer versus Sidway any more detail than it is in the textbook and in the PowerPoint. Your questions are here. When you are writing your assignment, make sure you are using academic format. You're not centering it. You're using that let justify. You're tabbing in new paragraphs. You're using in-text citations throughout. You should not have a single section here that does not have in-text citations. Because you're taking this class to learn the material, you need to reference the material to show that you have used it. There are concepts in here such as a reasonable person that we've covered in other courses, such as legal terminology. So when you get to that, make sure you're using a legal definition. Make sure you're going to something reliable to define that term if you want to use that, and that you're citing it both in text and at the end properly. So if you got any questions, don't hesitate to email me. Have a great week.